There's a version of creatine advice that goes, take it with a high glycemic carbohydrate and it will work better. It's been repeated so consistently that many people treat it as established fact. The truth is more context specific, and the context specific matters for how you structure your protocol. The reasoning behind the carbohydrate advice is real. Creatine transport into muscle cells is mediated by the SLC6A8 transporter, a sodium-dependent active transport protein. Insulin influences the activity of certain transport systems and stimulates skeletal muscle glucose uptake via the GLUT4 transporter. A 1996 study showed that taking creatine with 50 to 100 grams of simple carbohydrate, enough to produce a substantial insulin spike, significantly improved creatine retention compared to creatine taken alone. That finding is legitimate. Insulin does appear to enhance creatine uptake into muscle when both are present simultaneously. So the carbohydrate advice isn't wrong, but it isn't the whole picture, and for most people supplementing today, it doesn't meaningfully change the practical recommendation. Here's why. The 1996 study showed enhanced uptake during the initial loading phase. When muscles are filling from an unsaturated state, the creatine transporter is most active when cellular creatine concentration is low and more creatine is available to move in. As muscles approach saturation, transporter activity decreases. The gradient that drives uptake lessens. For an individual who is already fully saturated and taking a maintenance dose, the difference between taking creatine with and without carbohydrate is negligible because the transporter is operating at lower throughput regardless. Subsequent studies using moderate carbohydrate doses, 30 to 50 grams rather than the 100-gram doses in the early work, showed smaller or inconsistent effects on creatine retention, particularly in already saturated individuals. Protein can also stimulate insulin release, though to a lesser degree than simple carbohydrates. Some research suggests that combining creatine with a mixed meal, containing both protein and carbohydrate, produces creatine uptake comparable to taking it with simple carbohydrate alone, without requiring a large sugar load. What does this mean practically? During an initial loading phase, taking creatine with a carbohydrate-containing meal may modestly accelerate the saturation process. For ongoing maintenance, the difference is minimal. Taking creatine with any regular meal, which typically includes some combination of carbohydrate and protein, is adequate. There is no practical reason to consume 50 grams of simple sugar daily just to optimize creatine uptake once you're already saturated. The insulin-creatine interaction is also the basis for claims that creatine works better post-workout. The reasoning being that the post-workout period involves elevated insulin sensitivity and often a carbohydrate-containing recovery meal. Post-workout creatine timing does show a modest advantage in some studies compared to pre-workout, but the effect size is small enough that it becomes irrelevant compared to the effect of simply taking creatine consistently every day at whatever time is easiest to remember. Take it with a regular meal. The accompanying food provides enough of an insulin response to facilitate normal creatine uptake. And if you're taking it between meals with water, it still works, just possibly slightly less efficiently during the initial loading phase. Consistency across every day is worth more than insulin optimization on some of them. One more angle on the insulin-creatine interaction, the post-workout timing discussion. Some research suggests that creatine taken post-workout, when insulin sensitivity is elevated and muscles are actively taking up glucose, may produce slightly better retention than creatine taken pre-workout in an unfed state. A study by Antonio and Ciccone, published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition, showed a statistically significant but modest advantage for post-workout creatine timing on lean mass. Strength outcomes compared to pre-workout. The effect size was small, and the study lasted only 4 weeks, making it difficult to draw strong conclusions about long-term relevance. Other studies have failed to replicate a meaningful timing difference when nutrition variables are controlled. The most reasonable interpretation is that if you're already taking creatine consistently and eating a meal around your training, post-workout timing with that meal is a sensible default. But if the choice is between perfect post-workout timing that you'll forget half the time versus imperfect timing that you'll actually stick to every day, choose the latter without question. The difference between post-workout creatine and morning creatine is trivially small,